Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Thursday, July 3rd, 2025. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and Change. Great show coming for you today with the Dean, Bill Kurelic, and the Grand Poobah, Mark Porter. Tons of recruiting, tons of commitments. Not tons is a stretch. We've got some good stuff to discuss. We'll be off tomorrow, so Dave Biddle is already probably on a tropical location. No, he doesn't have to host the pod tomorrow, but tomorrow is July 4th. So we hope everybody's got themselves a wonderful long weekend plan. If you're wondering, this podcast covers the national champions. Thanks to the foundation, too. I always like to give some love to those who helped. And if you need to give some love to yourself, you know what time it is. Cornbread hemp time. Holiday weekend. Those of you cutting out early today, when you have the gummy in your mouth on the ride home, don't do that. I don't think that part's legal. But I will tell you this. Cornbread hemp is America's first ever USDA organic THC gummy that is legal. They value your personal experience. Your healthy happy hour is a natural and healthier way to experience a carefree moment. The gummies offer a balanced sense of happiness and relaxation. No Spicoli action here. You should be able to hack it. Proudly grown in Kentucky. No synthetic ingredients. 10 milligrams of THC per gummy. If you're looking for a healthier way to enjoy a carefree moment, as I just said, you got to give cornbread hemp a try. And I say this pretty much every time. They would not keep advertising if the Nutters did not keep gummying. They've created the first ever USDA organic THC gummy. Like I said, 100% legal. For those of you who like to skew near the edges, you're good here. As a special offer for our Bucknuts Morning 5 listeners, you can get 30% off your first order. Just visit cornbreadhemp.com/Bucknuts and use promo code Bucknuts at checkout. Again, that's cornbreadhemp.com/Bucknuts and use code Bucknuts for 30% off your first order. Cheers to a happier, healthy happy hour. All right, we got our guys here. The Dean, Bill Kurelic, the Grand Poobah, Mark Porter. Gentlemen, several commitments have been scheduled. I changed that. One commitment and an announcement has been scheduled. If that was a Freudian slip, I'll probably get aggregated. First up, let's go chronologically here. What would it be at Ohio State if you were not romanticizing one of the best quarterbacks in the country? One of them who's been tearing up the West Coast 7-on-7 is Luke Fehee. And wouldn't you know, Bill, Luke Fehee is making his college commitment later today, West Coast time. And word is it's Ohio State and Stanford. So your thoughts, Dean, on whether he will choose the Stanford Cardinal or the Stanford of the Midwest in Ohio State?
Well, you did not have a Freudian slip, Dan. Several commitment announcements have been scheduled. In fact,
Right.
It seems like a new one every day almost, even though we're so far into the recruiting process. But Luke Fehee is scheduled to announce his commitment later today. And then tomorrow, you've got Felix Ojo scheduled to announce his commitment on 4th of July, of course, keeping all recruiting people involved with Felix, working on the 4th of July, I might add. And then the other day, I think it was yesterday, it was either yesterday or the day before, Deron Parks, the offensive lineman from Florida, announced that he has scheduled his commitment date. It's a ways out, though. He's going to announce on July 26th. So that's a new one, relatively new. And then you've got Braylon Womack, still scheduled for August 22nd. The announcement-related thing is J.J. Perez, of course. He is going to have an announcement tomorrow, and that's basically where he left it. I got an announcement tomorrow, he said. But as far as Fehee, it is 3 teams, as he has told me. It's Ohio State, it is Stanford, and it is Indiana, his final 3. I don't think most people believe that Indiana is going to be the choice because they just got a quarterback commitment recently. So Ohio State or Stanford is the announcement. I think that everybody expects one of those two. And I've had Luke crystal balled for a little bit now to Ohio State, and I still am riding with that pick, so to speak.
All right, Marcus, this is where you come in. Luke Fehee is the answer possibly to the question of where was Ohio State going to go in QB recruiting with so many guys in the fold and scheduled to come here, i.e. Brady Edmonds and your Tavian St. Clairs of the world. But I will tell you this, Luke Fehee is a very productive quarterback, and Greg Biggins, our West Coast guy, is very high on him. What say you in Ohio?
Yeah, I agree. There is, you get scared off when you see 6 foot, 185 pounds, but I'm going to throw a lot of names at you that are not going to scare you when it comes to these type of players. Of course, Julian Sayin on our own roster. Bo Nix was just taken in the NFL draft. Bryce Young is famous for being undersized, and it's all about ball placement. That was an effortless dime that he just dropped on someone. It looked like he barely was throwing the ball. Zone read here, you see the ball placement. And what makes him special is ball's over 20 yards. His placement was almost like a handoff. I want to put a clip of him running right there. He is not Michael Vick, but he is not slow either. He's one of those guys that'll do what he has to with his feet. There's the whole shot to show you the arm strength. This is a pure passer who's going to – there's your seam ball that, you think, you need the 6'5" kind of drive it down the field. And he's driving it down the field pretty good. Russell Wilson's and guys like this have survived on this ball placement and accuracy and being, I guess, students of the game and understanding where the ball go with the ball and the timing and the rhythm. A lot of that stuff fits what you're saying here. So some of the names I pointed out are good comps to what you're going to get with this kid. But having Julian Sayin already on the roster shows you a blueprint. And then if you go back in Ohio State quarterbacks, how about JT Barrett? He was never the tallest guy, but winner. Won a lot of games, made a lot of people better around him. That's the type of skill you're going to get out of Luke Fehee.
I'm not sure if Fehee is the runner that Barrett was, but I can tell you just from watching him, he's got a stronger arm. Fehee's arm, that ball gets there in a hurry. I think one thing that jumped out to me when I was watching the video before that and when you show it there, he's very good at throwing different – this is going to sound like an obvious statement. He's good at layering the ball, but – when he needs to hump up and throw a ball that doesn't get more than 6 feet off the ground, he can do that. He just looks very comfortable, and it's hard for me to judge this. It does look like he's a very quick decision maker. Brain to feet looks like a very simple or smooth. Some guys when you can see when they see it, their feet hit and boom, the ball's out. He looks very smooth. Now I would assume you have to be like that when you are 6 foot and 185 pounds. Bill, should people be tweaked by the offer list? We don't usually go after quarterbacks who choose between Stanford and Indiana. Do you think they're bringing him in here with high hopes as a sandwich guy? How was your view of it?
I think Mark said something that hit it right on the nose. You look at Luke Fehee and you watch his video, and Mark said he is a pure passer. He is someone that can do some running, but he is a pure passer. What does Ryan Day want in a quarterback? He doesn't want – how many times have we seen Ryan Day run the quarterback 20, 25 times in a game? Like 0? Ryan Day is looking for a passer first. If they have the ability to also be a threat or somewhat of a threat running, fine. But that's, he is looking for a passer, and Luke Fehee is a passer. So this is the kind of guy Ryan Day wants in his offense. Now, the only thing is he's not 6'3" or 6'4", but you have seen that Ryan Day is okay with that. Julian Sayin is not 6'4". So this is the kind of quarterback that Ryan Day wants, and he is not just a fill-in. They weren't going to go out if they get him. They were not going to go out and just go get him or any other quarterback just to be some guy that fills a slot. They can do that with a walk-on if they really wanted to, without. And have done that in the past. They've had walk-on guys on the team at quarterback, and they can do that. They've went out and they have looked for a scholarship quarterback, and Luke Fehee is the guy that they came upon. You look at his offer list. Just because he narrowed it down to Ohio State, Stanford, and Indiana doesn't mean that he didn't have other good offers. Colorado had a pretty good quarterback this year, as I recall. Florida State was one of his offers. Fehee was offered by Oregon. People forget that. So he had some pretty good offers before narrowing it down to the 3 schools that he narrowed his list down to.
Bill must have been getting my vibes through my thing, but Dylan Gabriel, I know you're a Browns fan. How tall is he? They beat you to it, Dan? And then, I
had a joke. It's funny. I was going to use the joke before I went to you, and I figured I'll go to you because you won't screw it up. And I thought to myself, well, we can't take Bill's word for it. He's already wearing a Dylan Gabriel jersey underneath his sweatshirt. But I digressed, and you took it. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, but that's a comparison. And then, Sean Payton in the NFL, Drew Brees, and then he goes and drafts Bo Nix. There are some coaches who have absolutely no fear of height. Okay, but also football IQ. Like you're pointing to a package, like Bill said. Hey, Coach Day wants to throw the ball first. Run, we'll add that as the bonus, and that'll increase your value to the team. But we need pure passers that are accurate, on time, spin it. This fits that. I just know it's not the most perfect package. When you come to these recruiting nicks, everybody's got to be 6'4", 225, and with lasers coming off their shoulders.
And by the way, you mentioned it, Dan, that Greg Biggins is high on Luke Fehee. No network, nobody has 2 better guys on the West Coast that have been doing it longer or even close to doing what they do than Greg Biggins and Blair Angulo. And those 2, of course, are on our network. They've been doing this forever. They've seen it all out there, and they really like Luke Fehee. So, if you're an Ohio State fan, certainly you are hoping and wanting Luke Fehee to announce today that he is going to continue his career at Ohio State.
Kind of interesting. Luke Fehee from Mission Viejo. Is that right, Bill?
Yep.
And Brady Edmonds from Huntington Beach are about 25 minutes away from each other. There's a chance Ohio State coaches just want to get out to the West Coast and get to some of the nicest beaches in the country because they've now got set up like that. I did also look it up, and Huntington Beach and Mission Viejo do not play each other this year. So I would have sent Bill out for that one. Sorry, Bill. All right. Let's get to the large matzo ball in the room, or the elephant in the room, whatever you want to call it. Jameer Perez has announced he's making an announcement tomorrow. Bill, I have to assume, given the fact this is happening in Ohio on July 4th, Perez will be making whatever announcement is from the annual Kurelic family cookout. Is that correct?
Well, we do have a cookout planned at and this bunch of Kurelics don't have to do the work because it's at my daughter and her husband's house and our 2 grandkids' house. So they get to do the work. So that is just fine with me. But yeah, Perez has said he's going to make an announcement tomorrow and left it at that. You have to think certainly that it is a recruiting related announcement. I think we'd all be shocked if it's not. Now, there's nothing to say. He had a final announcement that he planned to make on August 22nd. There's nothing to say that if he had waited till August 22nd, he couldn't have made a final announcement then that he was staying with his Florida commitment. So there's nothing to say that he doesn't make his final announcement tomorrow and say he's staying with Florida. Now, do I believe that's going to happen? No. I have said for some time that I think eventually he flips to Ohio State. So that's my feeling, just my gut feeling, that that's what's going to happen. But again, he hasn't said that's going to happen. All he has said is that he has an announcement to make tomorrow on the 4th of July.
Mark, do you think he's going to announce that he loves sparklers? Do you think he's going to announce that he's more of an M80 guy? Everyone knows the kid in their neighborhood who got the M80s, and that kid was the kid your parents told you to stay away from. But I digress. Go ahead, Marcus.
Yeah, we took a victory lap when the St. Clairsville kid got his offer, Mason Wilt, because we were on him first. We've been talking about J.J. Perez since we were watching Lutheran West film on him, and no one knew he was Jameer or J.J. It was just a non-thing, and we almost seemed like we were crazy showing you this big guy throwing guys around. We announced his transfer to Glenville. We announced his breaking news to Florida. And I'm pretty sure the Buckeyes are going to be happy with this one. I don't think this kid would announce an announcement and just announce the same thing that everyone already knew. That doesn't seem like worthy of the hoopla he's created for this. So there's some sort of a flip or a flop coming or a change, maybe. You're just trying to build the old-fashioned tea leaves, smell, like something's going on here, smoke, fire. So Buckeye fans, you get ready for a big boom on 4th of July. Hopefully this would be a nice one to land. And what's so nice about Perez is I talked about it the other day, when you build a wide receiver room or defensive line room, you're putting different tools in your tool belt. And this kid serves a certain purpose at an extremely high level. Is he a pass rusher coming off the edge? No. But on 3rd and 1 or short yardage or first or second down, you're not running probably in either A gap with much success. It's going to bounce, and you can start your defense off like that. And if you're a linebacker at Ohio State, you love guys, Ted Washington, Tony Siragusa, that draw double teams and let you run free and roam the earth like a dinosaur before the prehistoric times, where the field is yours and you don't have to worry about people slowing you down. So this is almost like a 2-and-1 where the linebackers should be just as happy as the coaching staff, because if J.J. Perez commits to Ohio State, you have the ultimate run-stopping nose tackle in the country this year.
Two things come to mind, Mark, when you say that. One is, I think my guy takes up 2 loops on the utility belt, not just 1 loop, okay? He's a dual looper. You got it. And secondly, the player that may benefit the most from his commitment is Sincere Johnson, who will be playing likely middle linebacker behind him, who plays behind him now at Glenville. Keep in mind, I get we are being a little bit facetious here, but it is the Glenville pipeline, and he is announcing it on July 4th in the state of Ohio. The earth could rotate off its axis if this doesn't go correctly. It'll just go to where could it be? And I also put this in there. When our guy committed to Florida, and I sent Bill a text with tearful emojis, Bill and I discussed maybe my favorite defensive player I've seen in Ohio since I've been here, or one of them, was a kid from Benedictine who knocked out Joe Burrow in the state playoffs. By the end of it, he was essentially playing quarterback and everything on defense, and his name was Jerome Baker. Jerome Baker went on a trip to Florida in the winter and came back committed too. And I don't think I texted Bill, and I think I just called him in tears, and I was told, just relax. It'll all work out in the end, and it did. Note to self, or note to Florida, if you get a commitment from a Cleveland area standout on defense with an Ohio State offer, don't get your hopes up. That's just my own opinion. Here's what you can get your hopes up for, and that is Factor meals. Bill, I have to assume we will not be serving Factor meals at your July 4th celebration, though you could, and save yourself some time if you had like 50 microwaves, because it only takes 2 minutes. Summer's here, more light, more time to do all the things that make summer special, like party with the Kurelics. But the number one thing you don't want to be spending hours cooking inside. Bill's family will be doing that for him. He'll be outside showing the younger kids how to shotgun beers and all the stuff that Bill's known for. And that's where Factor comes in. Chef created, dietitian approved meals ready in just 2 minutes. taking the hassle out of eating well. Get started at factormeals.com/Bucknuts50 off and use code Bucknuts50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Factormeals.com/Bucknuts50 off. All right, Bill. This may not be as pleasant a discussion, but you alluded to it earlier. Felix Ojo is a name we've heard consistently here. There was a time when I maybe thought Felix Ojo would be a Buckeye. Word is among the cognoscenti that it's a Texas-Ohio State tussle down the stretch. The Texas native, we do expect to commit to Texas. Is there a chance for a last-second Hail Mary from the Buckeyes, Bill? Have to admit that'd be a little surprising given his position and the success they've had on the offensive line, but please take it and run with it.
Well, I have long said I never like to say never in recruiting. That said, I don't think he goes to Ohio State, and I don't think many people out there do. That's not obviously a knock on Ohio State. It's just that he's a Texas kid. And they have the wherewithal to get that done, and they have the desire to get that done. And I think that's where he ends up. We'll find out for sure tomorrow, but that's my feeling.
Marcus, you saw Felix Ojo. I get the feeling that Ohio State is pretty comfortable with their tackles. I know you are. You want to kind of just get us up to speed on what they got. And Sam Greer, we tend to do this with offensive linemen. Actually, I'll say this. We tend to do this with in-state guys. We maybe take them for granted a little bit. Sam Greer and Felix Ojo, to me, are similar prospects.
I 100% agree. Every year for the past couple of years, there's been 2 or 3 or 4 national offensive linemen, Brandon Bakers, Jordan Seatons, that we've lost sleep over. Ojo was that type of guy. But nevertheless, we did have one of those homegrown guys, Sam Greer, in our backyard to make this a little easier process. And there's no way in this day and age of NIL you're going to get all of those guys anymore. They're going to divide up, and people are going to overpay for that position because the talent at that position is so finite. There's not a lot of 6'7" human beings in every class, or 6'6" or whatever it is, prototypical NFL guys. But the Will Greer I keep calling him the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. Jeez. Yeah. Sam, he's the prize. If he wouldn't have been an Ohio State homer for us, we might have had to pay through the nose for him, or someone may have overpaid for him. And I would be worried that at the last second, if someone was coming for somebody or had a bag of money left over, Greer is the type of person they would go after because of his rareness. I don't want to scare people, but that's how much I value him. So, yeah, we did get our werewolf from Ohio in the O-line class. We got other guys, the 6'7" kid that has the long arms. It's a little bit of a project. I can't think of his name right now. But,
Evers?
Boy, yeah, he was like Sam Greer, but I think I said he's probably a year behind Sam in development. Just wasn't playing the competition, not at Archbishop Hoban, but same natural skills. But I think Ohio State will be fine with these guys down the road once they're in the weight room for a couple of years and they, maybe a redshirt year away.
Bill, question from Christopher Sowers. Can we please have an update on Duron Parks? You teased it earlier. Can you put some meat on it?
Well, he's like I said, he is in that he put out that he is going to make his announcement on July 26th. That's the guy that I think, just from all his background and from my feelings from talking to him, I think that he is really highly interested in being a Buckeye, and I've said that for quite some time. The question is Ohio State going to go all in on him? And if they do, would he go ahead then and commit? I tend to think he would, but again, the question is, would Ohio State go all in on him? His official visits were to Ohio State, Kentucky, Florida State, Rutgers, and Auburn. I think right now, if I had to make a pick of where he ends up, I would likely go right this minute with Florida State.
This is more for you, Marcus. we've talked about Adam Guthrie. I feel like is the guy we're going to be talking about until he gets down to Clemson. By the way, I don't know, the most popular bumper sticker in the state of South Carolina is "All dirt roads lead to Clemson." So I didn't make it up. It's a South Carolina Gamecocks bumper sticker. John Bolin asks, any chance that quarterback Trey Robinette walking on impacts offensive tackle Adam Guthrie to reconsider going to Clemson? Can you take that, Mark?
That would be wishful thinking. I did go to the Miami Trace pro day down there, and that is a nice, tight-knit community, but I don't think those two are tight enough friends or related where, is the quarterback secretly his girlfriend? A walk-on quarterback wouldn't draw me anywhere, but I get the sentiment. Is there a way to flip another 5-star offensive lineman in Ohio to Ohio State? Wouldn't that be a cherry on top where, Clemson has an average year. They start off and don't play so hot, and Ohio State's out of the gates, and, maybe the door's still open for Guthrie. I think that situation is more likely than a walk-on quarterback. I think talking about a walk-on quarterback, what are Robinette's chances to crack the 3 or 4 deep in the depth chart? What walk-on quarterback has done that in recent memory? And we've taken a couple good walk-on quarterbacks, and they serve their purpose. If I don't even know if they run the scout team or if they use the scholarship guys to run the scout team. So it's definitely an uphill battle for a walk-on quarterback at Ohio State, because you're hopefully recruiting a first-round draft pick every year. And a walk-on, Trey Robinette doesn't exactly have an offer list that would say, he's an FBS talent. I've said this about walking on a quarterback at Ohio State. Wouldn't be a bad idea to do it for 2 years to get that training, to get those reps, see that what's going on there, and then make your exit to somewhere else. Because maybe if you went somewhere else, you wouldn't get that type of training for 2 years. Like we always say, go to Ohio State and develop. There's a backdoor way to that too, and that could be used by walk-ons. That they're going to get a pretty good football education if they walk on. Yeah, I'm seeing Spider say the same thing. Where it's not a fun road, but if you knew you were going to sit for 2 years, no matter where you went, and then your third year play, okay, go get trained by the best of the best. Go compete with the best of the best. I know I just went on a tangent on that.
Well, I liked it.
Yes, that's definitely not a reason to draw a 5-star away from Clemson, unless there's something going on I don't know about.
Something Mark said got me to thinking about something related. People are, I would say, concerned. There's angst over edge defensive end recruiting. But keep in mind, Ohio State, and I don't just relate this to defensive end edge recruiting. They are really good at waiting, not panicking and waiting things out. There's a lot of season to go. Mark got me thinking about this. He said something about, does Clemson have a bad season? Well, Ohio State, this isn't Mark Pantoni's first rodeo. In fact, it's a lot of rodeos for Mark Pantoni, and a lot of rodeos that he has done very well. And he and the Ohio State staff are really good at waiting to see what transpires during the season, coaching changes, all those things, and then looking for flip guys, whether it be edge or another position. And then going in and flipping guys late to Ohio State. And, that is definitely something they do well. They just don't panic. They know they are Ohio State. And as one Ohio State coach told me, when I walk into a building with that O on my shirt or my sweater or whatever, it means something. So they can do that.
And look, are we often accused, or at least occasionally accused, of being in the tank for Ohio State? The show is called Bucknuts. Let's be honest about that. But anecdotal examples of this: Caleb Downs and Julian Sand. Now, will the greatest college football coach of all time retire? No, because he already did, and that was Nick Saban, and we took advantage of that. But if things go wrong at these other big-time schools, And here's what we know about Ohio State. They're not going to go wrong. Go do the research. There's really only one team that doesn't dip, and it's yours. I think they're in excellent shape. So we have reached that part of the show where it is Mika carrying the crew here with questions, and he had one. There we go. In caps. Could we offer Elijah Durham-Smith, Malachi Irvin, Caden Turner, and Henry Perrymund? Will they get second looks? He loves all four. You know what that means. They are Buckeye Staters. Doesn't it?
They all are.
What do you think, Mark?
There's a different array of positions there she's going at. Perriman's definitely a corner from Cleveland Heights, class of 2026. Not sure he's Ohio State. The Malachi Irvin, the defensive end from Pickerington North, he camped at Ohio State. I didn't think he had the fifth gear. I think he had fourth gear, but I don't think he had fifth gear compared to the national guys on that list. Pull that list up again, Dan. I'm forgetting a few of the names.
Caden Turner?
Yeah, from Dawson Bryan. I like him. I think he's got some talent, but he's not as developed as some of the other guys that are nationally. Again, when you throw some of these Ohio guys down the list, you know, the top 20 in Ohio supposedly would have a chance to get at Ohio State. When you get like ranked 20 to 40 or 20 to 50, some of those guys could be Ohio State, you know, and just misevaluated by, you know, guys that rank or whatever. And when they go to a camp, you know, it comes out in the wash. I like all four of these names. I think 2027 is the Caden Turner, but maybe a year to wait on him. I'm pretty sure, unless he is 26, I'm drawing a blank. But none of these names in my rankings would be screaming, hey, Ohio State has to take these guys. They would be guys that would be, you know, second-tier guys, maybe had a big senior year. You show up on film senior year, you're 20, 30 pounds heavier, that type of story. In Ohio State, we do know this, what happens in the state playoffs every year for Ohio State. If Dawson Bryant makes a run and Caden Turner is a big part of it, and they're playing in Week 16, that does well for you, stuff like that. If Pickerington North makes a run, and the storyline of the year is our defensive end's been lights out, these things all become revisited. So I'm trying to say no to these on one hand, but I'm trying to make the case that Mika is trying to make there, that if you do take some of these kids, these are kids you want to develop because they're in Ohio. And I should be president of the Ohio fan club for all kids in Ohio, and I would like to see more Ohio guys. But I know that Bill, the national guys that Ohio State brings into those football camps every summer are just off the charts. Every time we do an evaluation, Dan, one of the final questions is, where does this kid rank in Ohio? And it hurts my soul when I have to say, here are the three best in Ohio, and this guy would rank ahead of them. But that's the way Ohio State should recruit. They should recruit over guys like this, even if these guys are loyal Ohio State fans that live there, grew up Buckeye fans. There's a lot of kids going to Mount Union that are Buckeye fans since birth. You know, it doesn't mean you can take them because they love the Buckeyes. So that's my argument for those kids.
You know, also looking at all those names, if you look at things in terms of where Ohio State's going with commitments likely and roster size, okay, they don't have a lot of room necessarily that they need to play with adding a whole bunch of guys. And I'm going to give you the answer why. Right now, they're at 19 commitments. Okay, let us say that Luke Fehee, let's say he announces today he is Ohio State man. That's 20. Let's say that tomorrow J.J. Perez announces he is flipped to Ohio State. That's 21. Down the road, we got Braylon Womack, who they really want to add and have a really, I think, pretty darn good chance. That would be another one. So you've got Fehee at 20 potentially. You've got 21 potentially Perez. And you've got Womack at potentially 22. Okay. Then you've got that they want to add another defensive end. That would be 23. They would like to add Jerquaden Guilford. I don't know if they will or not, but they'd like to.
Wide receiver.
Yeah, wide receiver, who's right now it's Ole Miss High State. But let's say that would be 24. You know, could they flip Guthrie or add another offensive lineman? Possibly. That'd be 25. Now, when you get up to 24, and I've said I think this class ends up between 24 and 26 as things stand right now. Well, if you're at 25, for instance, and you project that out, you take 25 every year, you're pretty much right at the roster limit. You're at 100 by my math, and I know it's been a long time since I've been in school, but by my math, 4 times 25 is 100. So you're pretty much right at where you want to be for roster size by taking about 24, 25, 26 guys in a class.
The dean was a shop teacher, but that math was tight, Bill. Good job.
And we had to do a lot of shop figuring out all the measurements
You
on
used
your
a
projects.
ruler, and you had your calculator out. We all know the drill. All right. This question has come up, so I'm going to start to wind us down here, but the PJ Dean situation is puzzling now, according to Christopher Sowers. Bill, your thoughts on PJ Dean? I want to say he's a defensive end who committed to Georgia.
Yes, defensive end, defensive tackle, committed to Georgia.
Your thoughts on his recruitment? Why he may have picked the Dogs?
Well, when they got him in on his official visit, as they do, they look at people, look at recruits, both physically and how they fit into the program. Physically, they had been recruiting him as a guy that could play either edge or defensive tackle. They weren't sold on where he was physically, and 6'2" at about 240 in that range. There's some work to be done there if you're going to play at Ohio State, certainly as a defensive tackle. And the feeling was that they were in pretty good shape at defensive tackle, and that's proved out. They got Simeon, they got
Brickle,
and hopefully they're going to get Perez. And those fit their needs really, really well. They didn't necessarily see Dean as a pure edge guy. And once everything started falling in place and how he would fit into the program, they backed off.
240-pound hybrids are not playing a lot of snaps at Ohio State. Let's just be honest about that. Now, if you're a 240-pound edge werewolf that can't be stopped on the edge, then I get it. But that doesn't feel like a profile. And I don't know.
Just
all right.
Add a little more. I see the people who Ohio development and the walk-ons. To me, Ohio State always did the best when they would take walk-ons. That I always envisioned this kid, if he walked on at Capital or or if he played at Ohio Dominican or Capital or Ashland, he'd probably be the team captain, but he's walking on Ohio State. So that's the ilk you're trying to get. You're trying to get those try-hard kids, those team leaders, captains that have football talent and are just tough-ass football players, but they're not going to meet your measurables. They may come in at 240 on the D-line and hopefully leave at 280 3 years later or something. But it's hard to get kids that have a good scholarship list to walk on at Ohio State. I do remember kids with 1 or 2 MAC offers that would walk on at Ohio State, and maybe the MAC offers dried up, but those were like the ultimate walk-ons at Ohio State. Captains of D2 FCS programs or all league kids that would have played there that said, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring there. And, I wish we could, do a program of this. Who are the walk-ons or long shots that have turned out? Like, what is the all walk-on team? Is there one at every position in the history of Ohio State? Is there a walk-on quarterback that made it? A walk-on? I know we had a walk-on running back getting some reps from Hubbard a couple of years ago. Late in the games, you'd see him come in, and they do have stories. But boy, it's tough to beat all the recruiting. If Bill, like you said, they're putting 100 guys on scholarship, and you're one of the 20 that's walking on, and you beat one of those 100. Something went wrong in the evaluation room, supposedly. Now, this day of walk-ons, I will say this: there are kids that get academic scholarships to Ohio State. And there's NIL money to help these kids pay for some of their, tuition. So walk-ons today may be a little more valued, and you might be able to give them a little more of some wind in their sails to get them to commit, and they're not truly paying full boat as a true walk-on would. So this day and age, you can put some juice in them. Caffey is and he's at YSU. He's injured last year.
TC Caffey, yeah.
Thank you.
Xavier Johnson would be the most recent walk-on, at least on offense.
Yeah, there you go.
you know you're in trouble on the depth chart injury-wise when a walk-on wide receiver is your running back in a college football playoff game. So that was a hill too far to climb. All right. And Spider, I agree. That is a great idea for a podcast. And we will do that later in the summer when there is no news. But there is news. And the news is Bill will be working on a holiday because tomorrow we have the commitment of, I keep saying that. Now that's a Freudian slip. Of JJ Perez. Later today, Luke Fehee hopefully will hop on board with the Buckeyes. And then who knows what else could happen on the trail. It is Ohio State. We'll say this. We could not appreciate you guys being part of this show more than we do. You're the lifeblood of the site, and we appreciate it greatly. We hope everybody has a tremendous holiday tomorrow as they celebrate the greatest country in the world, and they root for the greatest team in the world that is the defending national champions. Life is good. Just know that it is. Happy July 4th to the Dean and the Grand Poobah. Have a good one. Nutter.